Ladies and gentlemen, gym owners, fitness instructors, personal trainers, fitness enthusiasts, glorious listeners of this podcast, we have a big announcement today. This article came out yesterday, John.
Yeah, that's when I saw it.
Big shock to all of us, guys. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You guys have been living in the US for a long time, but just people don't really trust the government in regards to health stuff anymore. Who would have thought? There is now, the article's titled, what, John? Resistance to public health is no longer fringe and gains foothold in GOP politics. You want to know how little I give a fuck about politics, John? I don't know the difference between GOP and whatever the other one is. When they start saying that,
Yeah.
which one is that? Is that Republican? I'm guessing that means
It's Republicans. Yeah.
What's the other one? Does the other one have a 3-letter thing?
I don't think so. It's just the
What I'm saying,
Democrats.
what are we doing?
I
Like
know.
GOP for no, it's like once we get into like, okay, the elephant or the donkey, I got no fucking idea. You give me that symbolism, it's gone in my head. So not only do I not know that, because I don't know that, I wasn't trusting these fools about shit to begin with. There's a part of me that goes, I grew up in a place where distrust of authority is kind of the centerpiece of what we're about here to a certain degree. That's why you live far away from everything. This is why you live where it's so cold that you die if you're outside. No, I rely on myself. I'm not here to rely on the government to keep me warm in the winter, because if I relied on that, I'd be dead the first night, halfway through the first night. Okay. So around here, I'm just used to that mindset being pretty normal. We're kind of two birds to the government. We want less bureaucracy, less bullshit. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I should or could do, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And apparently that's finally catching on. So good on you, I guess. The big thing, they kind of reference this as well, is like the big thing, the straw that broke the camel's back was COVID, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I mentioned this back then when we were in Europe, on the Strong Fit podcast. It was right when it first came out, March 2020. I was quoted multiple times going, this situation has pointed out, it's not the cause. This situation has revealed to all of us the death of the truth. Truth is no longer a commodity that we can vet. Like, all information now is just information. There's no difference between misinformation and information. It all comes at you the same thing. What is the difference between disinformation, misinformation, and information? I don't have a fucking clue. They're coming at you from legitimate sources, illegitimate sources, and the noise and the frequency is getting louder and louder and louder. That was 4.5 years ago, John. It is so much worse now. And I didn't think it'd get any worse. I thought at that point, which it kind of did, society would just kind of melt down, because you now can't trust anybody who's telling you anything. It gets to the point where if they tell you it's going to be sunny tomorrow, you got to go, yeah, these fucking guys. What are they getting at here? You know what I mean?
Well, and it is, and the point you're bringing up is good, because it's now anybody that was just on the fringes that hadn't been pulled there yet, but it's been in waves, right? Like, it's, if you go back, right, you lose the African American community with trust in the government because of when they fucking did the syphilis testing.
Yep.
And so the government then lies and then uses this group of people as their own incubator. And then you have
the fogging of the fogging poison gas into the ghettos in St. Louis that was going on. They're like, yeah, we'll just see what happens if we disperse this. You're just testing this on American citizens, but it's okay. They're poor,
right? And then the 80s and early 90s, and now you have the testing of pharmaceuticals on the homosexual community.
Yep.
So now you've lost them. And
you
then
have the same misappropriation of the AIDS medication, where you're like, wait a minute, is this causing the problem now? Now we got people, this regular situation, it escalates, but it only seems to escalate on people we're giving this medication. Now, I don't want to take this next step further, because I don't actually mean this, but that's where you start to look at when people are like, oh, I got diagnosed with cancer, and then I've been fine, but once I received the diagnosis, we try to treat the cancer, and it just beats them to fucking death, and then they die of this slow, miserable thing. It's like, well, I don't believe that cancer's fake, and that fucking all the things we do to treat cancer are fake. My fucking guard starts to go up now, and you're like, well, I don't know, man. Is the cure the illness? That's where you start to look at with this. The same thing then with these COVID. These aren't vaccines.
Well, opioid epidemic happens first, right?
Yep.
So then you lose people. Now you lose the pores
Yeah.
or not even necessarily the poor so much, where you start losing the whites in Appalachia and over here on the East Coast where I'm at, where now it's like, oh, like they were all hip to this. And so
Yeah.
now you start and that was what was crazy.
That's the one that broke, not only, in my opinion, everything up to that point was a mistrust in the government, really, and government agencies that were in the middle of
Agencies.
it. And the opioid crisis, probably even more so than the AIDS situation, because the AIDS situation was backed by a lot of government stuff. This is Fauci, by the way. That was Fauci's baby, was the AIDS situation. Right. So look into Dr. Fauci and AIDS, the real Dr. Fauci book. It's glorious. But you get into the opioid stuff, and now it goes, well, wait a minute, I don't trust these fucking doctors. And then it turns into with the opioid crisis was, well, the doctors weren't being malicious. The doctors were told that it wasn't addictive. It's like, yeah, well, I feel like you kind of get to the point where you have to understand that it is, right? After long enough years. And then, but who then was lying to the doctors? Oh, the pharmaceutical companies, and then these government 3-letter agencies, right? And that gets to the point where nobody trusts these agencies because they're lying to the doctors. Nobody's trusting the doctors because the doctors just blindly believe these government agencies, as though whatever principles these government agencies are following are dogma. This now has created this point where either trust in government or trust in the medical apparatus or the 3-letter agencies that are intertwined between those are your fucking religion. These are your priests. These are your chaplains. This is your Bible. This is your philosophy. This is the thing. It's a fucking cult where nobody is thinking anymore. And then you have these doctors during COVID now, John. COVID comes up. Oh, guess what? The science dorks made this thing. This wasn't some guy fucking a bat or whatever they tried to pass off in the beginning. That wasn't racist. Yeah, it didn't come from China. We kept calling it the Wuhan. Saying it came from China was racist. But seeing that these people were, I don't know, fucking or eating bats, you know, how the Chinese are, like that wasn't racist at all. Even though we made it. We made it. Not we, you and I. We, the government apparatus, the 3-letter agencies, your CDC, your NIH, all this shit that is funding this, creating legal loopholes and exceptions to just like, let's just do this research and see what we can come up with. Well, you came up with something and it got out. And then you use that opportunity to force this brand new medical technology on everybody. And not that we were forced to pay for it out of our own pockets. Thank goodness, John. What are we even complaining about? Right? It was all free for us. Why wouldn't we just get it? Indubitably. Guess what? Well, the government is paying them for it. It's not free. So all of a sudden, you're in this situation where nobody trusts anybody or anything. You either have to blindly trust or you have to blindly distrust. That's where we're at right now. And I think it's a good sign, because the biggest issue I have taken with people who are trying to lose weight, we talk about the overall health crisis in the States, we tie it back to gyms and fitness and health and well-being, is how do we win this obesity thing? It's a tremendous opportunity for us to have tremendous impact as an industry. And we're failing to do it because we're not helping people become successful. Part of that is making sure that people take actual personal responsibility for their actions, for the foods they eat, for the way they look, for the way that they feel, for their exercise or lack thereof, for their effort, all of those things. And anytime I pass off, well, I mean, the government told me because of COVID, I just need to stay in my house and get fat and drink alcohol. And as long as I wear a mask, I'll be healthy. And none of that shit was true. None of it was right. None of it was reasonable. So I think as long as people get to the point where if you don't trust anything, eventually you're just going to have to deal with yourself. You're confronted with yourself. And it's not any different than living in a world where you only have one source of information, right? If we were under this colossal dictatorship and we only got, by the way, what I'm saying probably is more like what it actually is. But we have this colossal fucking government apparatus and all of these, right now we have these many different news sources, right? But they're all kind of parroting the same thing, or at least two sides of the same thing. It's a limited hangout. There's not a very diverse, wide-ranging conversation happening. You can lose your goddamn mind about abortion right now. You could lose your goddamn mind about Israel or Palestine right now. You can't really argue about anything else though. Right? You're not allowed to spool up any stuff about that. Where are we talking about? Like whose neck is gonna find the rope over what happened to COVID? Oh, we're not talking about that. Nobody.
Mm.
Nobody. Right?
And
That's completely set. So I think while we think we're in this glorious free ranging situation, we do have all this great information. What we have is lots of people parroting a very limited conversation for the most part, and the algorithms are driving that to the point where at some point you're just now going to be like a guy in the 1700s who's just getting news that's getting barked down to him from the king's crier. And while that is what the king said, and you got to take that with a grain of salt, at least we're all on the same page. I understand what he's saying and what he's getting at. I just need to live for myself now. I need to respect that's what's happening. I understand I can't trust him. I only am working for me, myself, and my family right now. And that's what you need to do when the government is telling you, John, fucking, you must absolutely get this new fucking medical technology because of this disease that we made, or else you're going to get fired. Like, wait a minute. Fuck you, man. It seems like it should be an obvious decision if I was at such risk. Is there anything with me looking at the data that's going to make me concerned about taking this? Well, don't look at the data. Don't do your own research. Trust us. Trust the agency.
Well, you're not a doctor.
You're not a doctor. And then it turns out I thought more about this and looked more into this than doctors. You know how I know? I know doctors. I saw what they were posting. They were so wrong. It wasn't even fucking close. The whole time during John, I won't get too far. I know someone who's like, was telling a doctor was telling people loudly, frequently, belittling people on Facebook during COVID for like even dismissing the idea that children should get this. She was encouraging people 18 months, 12 months when that was coming out, like, no, you need to get infants need to get the COVID vaccine. They need to encouraging pregnant women to get it. And to be a person of sound scientific understanding and say, yeah, we obviously know this is safe for pregnant women. How would you know unless you had conducted tests on pregnant women? Do you think in the 9 months that they were fucking coming up with this vaccine that like they were just lining up pregnant women? Do you think that was on the list of people? There was no actual understanding of like what they were asking. And these were medical professionals with their heads up their asses, simply repeating memos that were coming in from administration. That's all it was. It was blind belief. It is religion. It was a fucking cult. And they lost so much trust. Doctors who were here, the worst ones about it moved away. Another one who's really bad about it fucking retired. Because fuck you. At this point now, when you see the damage that was done, it's done physically to the population as far as with risk for heart problems and other what are the other adverse effects from the vaccine. These doctors just parroting shit because they parroted it. That costs a lot more lives than this rejecting expertise that we did. Why are we rejecting their expertise right now? Because they fucking betrayed our trust. Trust is given. Trust is absolutely given. Trust is not earned. Trust is given. We chose to trust you because you did go to hospital. You did go to med school. You went to school for 10 years. You must be fucking smart. You took an oath, right? That's what the trust. Okay, perfect. I'm choosing to trust this person. You now have given everybody a reason to distrust you. So, fuck you. You've earned this. Okay. And now you can earn back our trust. Trust can be earned again, but it is originally a gift that we give you. It is a leap of faith that you then fucking violated. Absolutely violated it. It still, by the way, is criminal. That's the part I don't get. I'm not saying we got to run these doctors up, but somebody needs to answer some questions. Who was writing those memos? Who was telling these people how they should communicate on social media to the people in their local community about what they should do about COVID? Because those people writing those memos need to be talked to. And who told them to write those memos and how far up the ladder that goes? Those people should probably find a rope. That's what I think. Somebody should go to jail for the millions of people dead or the $2 trillion. That's the root of this. But it's so systemic that untrustworthiness is so systemic that now that is everything. And I think that's a great thing. They've exposed themselves. They showed their ass. Every one of these motherfuckers showed their ass to everybody here. So now we know. Now I don't trust you. Now I start looking into other things that you talk shit about. Now there's some risk in me turning to all these other things.
Sure.
I could go start drinking unpasteurized milk and I could fucking die tomorrow from some magical infection that I guess just happens when you don't boil your milk. Right? It could happen. But when I switched to raw milk, first off, best tasting milk I've ever fucking had in my life.
Mhm.
Best tasting milk I've ever had in my life. You had some of the stuff we had here too as well.
Oh yeah, and I've got it here in Virginia as well.
Even makes sense.
Nope.
Then
It's not even the same product.
no, it's not even. It doesn't. And I felt so good. I could have so much of it. It fixed my appetite, gut digestion was great. It was all good. That farmer, they don't do dairy anymore. They stopped. Want to know how many glasses of milk, sips of milk I've had since then? 1 or 2. That's it. I just won't have it because it sucks, dude. But that's the problem now. So people are worried that we're going to turn to all these other alternative solutions, and there might be some risk associated with it. And also because of the pollution of the information cycle that people have, like anything could be out there, right? It could be like, you gotta take the pasteurized milk and you got to put it way in your ass. Like, okay, I guess, and at some point things get a little crazy.
Right.
But that is, sorry. You know what? If you betray your spouse and you fucking leave her and you get a divorce, you can't get mad if she starts shacking up with somebody else, right? You just can't. Sorry, bro. You lost your fucking shot, dude. What are we supposed to say here?
And for me, it's the anytime that someone is trying to put you in a position to make a binary decision. And that's where everyone should be living. Because in the fitness industry, for us, it is, the power and the importance of anecdotal evidence.
Yes.
We live it every single day. And then when someone comes to you and says, actually, anecdotal evidence isn't real evidence and it's wrong and you're blindly doing things, it is, no. This is not regular life is not a decision between black or white, Israel or Palestine, right? Republican or Democrat. It's never binary, but the machine, the apparatus will always want you to pick a side, pick a side. And that's when my antennas go up whenever someone is forcing. And that's where this article really I wanted to talk about it. And I wanted us to address it, because this idea where it is now we are choosing, there's a phrase in here which says, there's deep suspicion of the pharmaceutical companies and federal regulatory agencies and an embrace of alternative medicine and natural foods. Those foods include raw or unpasteurized milk, which is being promoted by right-wing commentators, and which the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention deems dangerous.
And
when you put a binary decision on someone now, which is if you promote health, because that's this whole article is shitting on. Well, now you're a fucking Trumper. Like it's such a bizarre thing.
By the way, and that thing you used to be able, you could have said, this is good or bad. That binary decision of raw milk or healthy foods or whatever, working out for yourself, like get up, do some runs, lift some weights. Now this is all branded as exactly right. This is like, what are you just trying to promote traditional values? And now you're trying to
right wing.
You gun-toed loser. And the thing is, sorry, that wasn't catty. I was literally coughing. But now to politicize it, because we've reached this information saturation and there's just a lot of sheep in the world, you can do it either way. You can go, John, what's the association now? If I had to tell you a soy burger, someone orders a soy burger, who do you think they're going to vote for? You got that picture in your head, right?
Kamala.
Yeah, Kamala Harris or whatever. Now,
right.
So by doing that, what those now, like, you can position guaranteed, maybe not half the populace, because maybe half of them aren't that dumb, but a good chunk of the other political half will just blindly take, if you know what I mean, they'll just blindly take that advice. If you just said, like, listen, man, the trans people super into cheese. All right, you're gonna get tons of Christian conservatives going, fuck cheese, dude.
Fuck cheese.
Fuck cheese. It's like, what are you talking about? So that brand, putting a brand on that stuff now, it's just cheap. It's, what's the word I'm looking for, John? It is like muckraking. Is that the term? Like, it's like in a dirty political race.
Yeah.
You're just talking shit about the other person.
Mudslinging.
Yep. That you're able to do that now with big chunks of the population economically. Okay. Because if I'm just trying to actually keep factory farming, large scale centralized factory farming as the
Correct.
centerpiece of our food supply, I need to demonize all this other stuff. Well, it's very, as long as decentralized farming doesn't make its way close to the cities where there's such a large concentration of people, it will always be too decentralized to be a juggernaut in power necessarily. So it becomes so decentralized that now it's okay, John, if you in the mountains of Virginia drink some raw milk from some guy up the fucking road. That's not that threatening to their market share, as long as they can go to DC and pump 15 million people full of fucking skim pasteurized milk and God knows what else, and Velveeta cheese and whatever else.
And yet, you still, and I'm not going to pull up the article, but it's fucking there. Is yet the New York Times is still going to write fucking articles like this one that are going to backyard chicken farming people that have gardens and chickens are the biggest threat to public health.
How crazy is that?
Like that shit exists. So like come the fuck on. And that's why for me it is, we are allowed to not have binary camps. And if you're in the fitness industry, dude, you can love the LGBTQ, all those, right? You can love that community and embrace them fully, while also demonize seed oils. Like you got to trust the fact that it's like, listen, I'm allowed to be all the things. I can be pro-life, for the Second Amendment, and also believe that the soy burger bullshit, all the stuff that's lab grown meat might not be great, you all. And we could trust that soy is lowering testosterone in males and causing females to have periods that are sooner. And it doesn't mean that I'm a fucking conspiracy theorist. I'm allowed to be all the things all at once, but that breaks the code.
Right.
As people, you have to be able to thread this needle. You don't have to be all or nothing. And yet you're going to find yourself at odds when you try to consume content, because it doesn't, the algorithm, because that's why it's like, again, we're not going to spiral out of control, but it's like assuming that we don't live in, what's the fucking phrase? We're not in the matrix, right?
Yep.
This isn't, assuming that this isn't a fucking
full simulation right now.
Full simulation, right? But the algorithm doesn't like this. The algorithm wants you to be all this thing. Are you a big bald guy with a beard that lifts weights? Then you like titties and whiskey. But if you're also like, but I really like puppies and supporting people that have been falsely incarcerated, I'm part of the African American community in my town. It's like, I don't know what to do with that. I need to show you some rage bait, and that seems to be everything we're living in right now.
The algorithm has no room for nuance, and unfortunately, nuance was the biggest factor that was missing in everything that happened with COVID. Again, COVID was the thing that broke everything. I think it broke it loose. That broke everyone's perception, and there was no nuance. There was no balance. Like within all things in regards to, say, go back to the distrust in the public health agencies, not just the health of the public, but these agencies making these recommendations. That is about a lack of nuanced decision making. Everything was yes or no. Everything was binary. Everything was good or bad. Everything had to be, even when after the cat was out of the bag and everyone was getting sick from COVID. Well, you couldn't really ask about the tests stuff. Like, well, you know what I mean? Because in reality, in everything that's regulation or data based, there's a threshold, a line. And a decision needs to be made on where that line is placed. And where that line is placed actually dictates a lot about what is actually probably right, wrong, effective, or ineffective about these things. Okay. Now, to give a parallel example. Perfect example is guns. If you're one of those people who thinks that no regular free person should own a gun, then you believe that line is way back here, right? Way back on one side. I kind of think that I should own whatever the fuck I want. My line is way over here. But my line is still placed short of something. Like, I don't believe that I should be allowed to own a nuclear warhead. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
But there's just a spectrum from thermonuclear missile to little pea shooter. Okay. And somewhere in there is the line. And my line is there's probably other things short of a thermonuclear missile that I don't think anyone should be able to own. right? Somewhere in that.
Anti-aircraft,
Where,
anti-aircraft missiles.
yeah. Where
Yeah.
I choose to place that line, though, and where the government chooses to place that line, well, I don't think it's their decision to make, but where that line gets placed now really is the issue. And all the way down to like nobody is a problem, all the way up to like somewhere in there. That's where nuance is. That's where a fucking complicated decision involving lots of people and by the way, to assume that we catch that point and wherever we're at right now, that's kind of my one of the gripes with the people that agree with me. I'm like, no gun control, fuck off, you'll come for anything. But like it is, I should be willing to have the conversation that maybe our
Right.
line is not perfectly placed. They want to move it down a little. Okay. All right. Well, maybe down a little's not bad, or maybe it should be moved up. I don't fucking know. Should I be able to have fully automatic weapons? Honestly, like probably. Fuck off. I kind of vote for it. I don't care. But
Tommy
like,
guns were sweet.
but like some people want to go down one notch from what we have now. And I'm like, okay, maybe we meet in the middle. I don't know. But that is an actual real fucking conversation about things that would be productive. And we can always revise those lines. We can always revise them. We can always work on them. New information, new discussions, new ideas. Maybe we make a move and see how things respond. Didn't work the way we thought it was going to work. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? But that is actually working on the problem. That is not what the discussion is. The algorithm doesn't want nuance. The government doesn't want nuance. Nuance doesn't vote for right or left. Nuance is like, I want to know what this person thinks. I need to know what they think about this issue. Well, you know, it's all right side. The policy is already there. And during the COVID stuff, it was just blanket policy. Get this vaccine or not. Well, wait a minute. What if I've already been sick? Tough shit. What are you, some fucking Trumper? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, what are you, some anti-vaxxer? Well, this isn't a vaccine. Shut up. What about... What, you don't believe in vaccines now? What about all the great stuff we did with smallpox and polio? And I was like, well, I mean, you actually look back into that. I'd be willing to have a real discussion with you about that too, if we want to really get into it. But this isn't that either. So now saying that this new technology is the same thing and same impact as the fucking polio vaccine? No, it's not even close. Also, this one doesn't work. And even worse, it does the opposite of working. It fucking hurts people. And you're going to make, so let's pretend it worked okay versus not work at all, because we've decided now for sure it just doesn't work at all. And let's pretend you didn't have to take it for an infinite amount of times in your entire life, because we certainly weren't testing in the first 9 months. What happens if you take this 3 times a year for 25 years? Right? Because you just have to. We'll never know what that happens until 25 years from now. So how in the fucking world does your research support this? It doesn't. But that's the conversation you couldn't have. Conversation was take it or get fired. Take it or else you're killing grandma. Take this so we'll stop holding you, your kids, your wife, your bank account, your freedom. We'll stop holding you and your family hostage in your fucking home. That's the level that it got to, which is like, well, that's not nuanced. What about if I just got COVID, maybe I don't need to take it? What if I do have a pre-existing condition that maybe actually makes me a bit at risk for, maybe I just shouldn't be taking something that can jam me up and make me extra sick because I maybe can't afford to be extra sick if I've already absorbed COVID. But that wasn't a discussion that was even implemented when they were talking about policy. The policy was a hard line. It's like just a point for us to argue over.
Because people can't handle nuance, Tyler. They're like children. And that's the problem, is that we all know the reality is, and this is why we will do episodes on this show where we will do an episode saying, these are the trends to expect for 2024. And then we'll release the very next episode, which is fuck trends.
Fitness trends are bullshit.
They're bullshit. And this is why. And the reason why we can talk on both sides of our mouth, or at least it looks like that, is because it is nothing but nuance. And this is why I refer to the phrase of like threading this needle where it is in a society that doesn't want you to. And that's where there are great marketing concepts and schemes and ideas that will work for your gym. But if you do it this way, it could be the exact same thing, the same principle or idea that's behind it. But there's always somebody that's gonna fucking ruin it. Do you want somebody to make sure that the water is clean in your town? Do you want an agency that kind of says, hey, we should probably not put shit in the water? Yeah, you probably want somebody that does that. but we don't want them adding fucking
Pointless stuff.
bullshit. Now you right, and that's where it's like, wait, why are we doing this? Why are we taking it this far? It
And,
never
you know,
should have been taken this far.
And you may want somebody to make sure that these giant chemical companies that control the agricultural industry are not poisoning the soil, not poisoning the groundwater, not poisoning the runoff, not poisoning the food accidentally. Not like, you know what I mean? Just accidentally, just spraying stuff. We're going to keep the bugs off. And all stuff like, okay, that actually seems to make sense. So you're going to have government. Well, I don't maybe agree that the line should be that government makes this decision. Whatever. Somewhere, somebody. It'd be nice if somebody cared. And it obviously isn't the company that's just forcing these chemicals and spraying them all over everything all the time, right? It's not the company selling these chemicals. Sure doesn't seem to care what they get on and what goes on with it. Correct. So if they're not going to do it, somebody needs to get involved and make sure that they don't fuck everything up for everybody else who's just not involved in their fucking bullshit. Okay. But then you start to realize that, oh, these people from this company actually have all of the influence on the regulatory agencies. And that's what came out with COVID and in the opioid crisis, was we get to the point where you realize that the big money that is kind of like benefiting from all this bullshit, all this suffering, all the whatever, that just only sees one thing, which is their responsibility to fucking earn. You know, just gluttonous earning. And they
To the
just
shareholders.
they just chase that. Well, to assume that that's even like a noble cause is fucking not even true. I don't believe they're out there trying to kill anybody. I just think they're really inept, man. John, all of these systems are inept from the bottom up. And I think they're so inept, it is criminal. And they're so inept that it's beyond negligent. And that you can be so knowingly inept that it is malicious. And that's where I think government sits right now in all of their interactions with regulating medicine, food, public health, disease, whatever it is that's going on with our global or our American public health system, even fucking Jesus Christ, our overseas stuff, all the war stuff we're all about. It just seems like we were really stupid, actually. I'd love to think that we're just demons roaming, just pile driving the fucking Middle East. But I kind of think we're just really stupid and we let the people selling missiles tell us what to do with the missiles and where to go. That's kind of what I think we're doing. I think we're just that dumb.
I'm not as kind. You're giving a lead of or an opportunity for it to be inept, where for me it is, like for the government to take a step back and be like, well, the guys that used to own all the cigarette companies now bought up all the fast food companies and bought Nabisco and bought this shit. And then you just allow them to buy and own. It's at some point you're just taking the money and looking away. Like it's bribery. And it's like, I would love to say you're stupid. And and this is where it is, again, nuance, which is the physical people, the individuals that are in there, congressman or whoever, they as a person are not bad people. But you are now existing in a machine that is operating way beyond anything. And that's why all we can do is now focus on our communities. Correct. I don't need a double blind study to tell me that kids are fatter than they'll have ever been. And I don't need to have it be where the communities that I live in, where I have the largest population and concentration of people that are low SES, right? Socioeconomic status, the people that are on food stamps, that are in Section 8 housing, that are having the help because they need the help because they're poorer than fucking poor and they're working for $12 an hour. The reality is that the food that they're buying in mass is fucking poison. And the fact that the Coca-Cola company has a relationship with the food stamps and with Medicare and Medicaid and all those fucking government agencies, big fucking surprise that poison water is the number one thing that's bought with free government money.
Isn't that interesting? And that isn't even, I don't know. By the way, is that the same play as the COVID vaccine play? Obviously,
it's a money play.
It's a money play. It's like, well,
if
any, John, how about this, John? What if the government was going to pay gym owners to work with us? Any gym owners that want to work with Tyler and John, the government's going to pay for it. We get probably a lot of damn business. It might even be worth it for me to make sure that that's the case.
to
Right?
get a lobby. And yep,
God
absolutely.
damn, let's go. But that stuff is, again, I think it is a combination of malice and stupidity. I really think it is both for sure.
Mhm.
And there's too many different issues that are on wild, wild ranges within that spectrum too.
Right.
But the issue now is once you see this being trying to be politicized as one side versus another, that's how you know they're trying to box in the conversation.
And that's for me. That's the biggest part.
Yeah.
And if you are as of this recording, if you have not listened to episode 2210 from the Joe Rogan Experience, brother, sister, they come on, it's one of the most important episodes that have come out in a long time because of the idea that you have people that were in the soup, they were in the shit, they were lobbyists, they were doctors, and they're coming out and they're calling all these things that you guys know to be true as fitness professionals, people that have anecdotal evidence within their own communities, trying to do the right thing, trying to help people, seeing the obesity epidemic, seeing all the things that we have been talking about. If there's going to be a revolution, if there's going to be something that you care about, where you're going to plant your flag in the fucking ground and say, this is what I stand for. I stand to be able to protect my family, protect my communities, to be able to protect the people that are my clients that are paying me, to help them be able to live longer lives and happier lives and healthier lives. They call out all of this bullshit. And the problem is that there's so much. It's an overwhelming amount of information that is out there that should terrify you, but at the same time should empower you to be like, I know that there are people that are like me in other sections of society that I can lock arms with to kind of lead this charge for there to be a change.
Yeah.
There's a silly shit from the one British dude that came into the schools like 15-20 year Jamie Oliver tried to change schools, right? He had a show. It was a fucking disaster. And he ends up having like an existential crisis because there's no way to fix it. But it's like that guy saw it. It was so long ago. And what we know, which is like, why are we feeding the kids sugar and poison? And what happened to sugar? Why is sugar gone? Why is it nothing but high fructose corn syrup? Why did that happen? And this is why the joke always is that it's chickens are the gateway to all conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Because once you say, hey, I call bullshit on this thing, and they look, why? And this is what you're driving at, Tyler, which is we lost the trust. You gave us the reason to ask why. And the problem is now is that either you are, and now you get to go find it. And then you go, oh no, my whole world. And that's where you got to be careful, right? Don't get black pilled, but you got to realize that you may be new to all of these things. And if you've made it this far into this episode, you're already going to be probably closer to the page with us because you would have shut this off already. But it's understand that there's so many angles in which you can go at. We're learning these things where it's like, oh, this is fucked from every angle. But again, for me, there's so much information, but it should empower you to the point where it's like, hell yeah. Like that's where I came from it. This article pissed me off. It's why I wanted us to talk about it. But it is where it's like,
it's the signs of a flailing apparatus, though. That's one nice thing here. If you get to this point, you know what I mean? This is the point in an argument where someone stops becoming civil. You're like, oh, we're not having like a real debate here. You know what I mean?
Like, well, the Nazis did that too.
You called me a fucking moron or whatever. It's like, okay, well, that wasn't what we were talking about, but we can get into this. You know what I mean? And so I think that it is inherently a good sign, but it is important to know this is why I do recommend you got to stay plugged in enough so you know there's two rules that I think that people need to live by. I was talking to one of my weight loss clients about this today. Is throughout this process where he's had a lot of success, a lot of it came to the point where he had to know himself. He had to know that I wasn't going to do this if this. I just knew this was going to be a mistake, or I was doing this and it wasn't working. So I just know how I will behave in these circumstances. So I boxed myself in. And so the first rule is know thyself. Okay. Yeah. Know thyself. Know what you'll do. Know. And then the second one is know your enemy. Okay. No. Read this fucking article. You know what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? And if you look at just objectively what's probably right, and you go, well, why are they just trying to? Why is the people who are in charge of the majority, at least this publication, hands down. Why is people with that political leaning trying to tell me not to like eat my own food? Like, who are they getting their money from? And once you start asking, everyone's 2 or 3 questions away from being fucking red pilled pretty intensely.
Correct.
Once you cast away assumptions and start asking questions, things start to open up for you a lot, and you become an actual thinking person. And that's the biggest thing now, is if these articles are here to dish out talking points.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're made to do, so that when you have somebody in your neighborhood that's setting up chickens, and you're a left-leaning whatever donkey or elephant, whichever that one is, right? You're one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
You immediately know who they're going to vote for, and because you've already been so partitioned, not even forcefully partitioned, you've willingly allowed yourself to be partitioned.
Right.
You immediately go, oh, I don't like that guy. I don't trust that guy. I wouldn't do business with that guy. I don't like his family. Oh, he's probably coming for my body. He's probably trying to make sure that I can't have my abortions. He probably thinks COVID's fake. You know, he probably thinks Jews run the media. And it's like, well, only 2 of those 3 things are true. I'm just kidding. But I think that is a sign that they're flailing. It's the point how you know you're winning the argument, I think, or at the very least, the truth is on its way out, because they have to sequester it now. They can't bury the truth. They have to just brand it as not true. And that is what's happened with this overload of information that we have, that you're getting it from everybody. This is the big issue, is there was medical professionals during COVID spouting off about what could or should be done and how evil all of us are who don't want to get vaccinated. Local people. But then there's also like me with no credible background going, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like I should be able to make this choice myself. And you're not compelling me via force to agree with you. You're either going to force me to take it, but you ain't going to force me to agree with you. And you want to force me to take it? Like, what are you going to do? Right. Are you going to like you're either going to take money off my plate, or you're going to send you're going to do that physically? Like, oh, you're going to send cops to do this? Right. Good guys. You know, people I know, like, you're going to do that. How is that going to go? And what if I really don't want to? How many people are going to get hurt just to get me jabbed? And you start asking these questions. But what the problem is for the people that are sitting there, they go, well, there's all these doctors. They're in the front lines every day. All these nurses, they stopped making TikTok videos and they started saving fucking lives. All these nurses who were just obviously the smartest people you ever went to school with, right? They all went to nursing school. That's all what they are. The most brilliant minds that should be making decisions for society. Those are the ones that you guys know who went to medical school, right? Not just a bunch of not just a bunch of ladies waiting to marry the right guy so they can quit working. Nurses are just like I'd even put them a level below like veterinary assistants. That's a whole, as far as people I know intellect wise, specifically in the category of, do I want them deciding what I do and don't do with my fucking life? Do I want nurses deciding about my fucking like policy for whether or not I can go to work, or what businesses are at a large enough scale that I should get fired for if I don't get vaccinated? That's pretty crazy. Just because these broads are yelling some crazy shit from Facebook because they had a hard day at work. Well, I'm sorry.
Is it any crazier than a couple of old guys that live in a fucking city that's nowhere where you live, and they have no fucking business? They just won a couple of fucking it's the same thing, right? Yeah, allegedly wins.
Yeah, this is where like the foundation of all mistrust starts. And now you guys are going to eventually get far enough down this road, and you're going to realize that there is, I mean, no fucking way that we went to the moon. Trust me. Okay. Once you come to that realization, you're not going to trust these organs. No, back to the point I was making is that like you will have now information coming through my mouth. It's just filtered through my experience and my thought process. And I'm saying, I don't think this is right for my wife, by the way, was being threatened to be fired when she was working for Pepsi.
Right.
Constantly. Everyone else got vaccinated and stood up. Not at all. Every single person was threatened. If you literally, by their HR department, if you don't get vaccinated by this date because of this mandate, you will lose your job. We will terminate you. We will terminate. She's getting talked to by HR. She's being talked to by her manager. All these other men. She's the only woman that worked there on the actual production side of this, or the actual not office side of the place. And fucking all these men did nothing. They bent over and took it. All these men who did not want to get vaccinated. You know what they did? Well, I don't want to lose my job. So they got fucking vaccinated. And now tons of them regret it. A bunch of them got pretty fucking sick in the process, just had a rough couple weeks. Some of them maybe just used that getting a little fever afterwards as an excuse to take a couple weeks off because fuck you, you made me.
Right.
But, and I told everybody during that time, John, you remember me taking many stances on this. If your job is going to fire you for not getting vaccinated, make them.
Right.
You will fucking sue. Look at what happened with the military.
Mhm.
All those veterans, all those soldiers who basically got the boot, got discharged because they wouldn't get vaccinated. Now, not only are they allowed back in if they want, but they're also getting damages, back pay, paid. Like I told everybody in this, call their fucking bluff. When it comes to authority trying to boss you around, to a certain extent, the only thing that makes that authority real is their threat of force. So if you say, make me, and they don't actually have the means or wherewithal to make you, they don't have fucking a single leg to stand on. So fuck them. And so my wife at least sat there and did, no. Because at that point, if you're going to get fired, fucking let them fire you. You don't quit.
Right.
Don't go do a thing you don't want to do, which is either get vaccinated or quit. Make them fire you. And when the truth comes out in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, fucking clean them out. Because fuck them. They didn't, you didn't mean anything to them. They were putting your health, your life at risk by forcing you to do something that you didn't understand, that you go know goddamn well. Nobody at Pepsi had a fucking clue. Okay. That's the problem is now this all stuff starts to weave through and it's all the same. So if raw milk is illegal in your area, but you just think, I don't know, maybe we're going to find it. There's plenty of ways. You got to cross the state line. It's not really illegal. You can get herd share stuff. That's what we used to have to do.
Yeah,
We just
same for Virginia.
paid for a certain amount of, we owned shares of this herd of cattle so that then we could own the milk because it was our milk. We owned it. We didn't buy it. We owned the cows and whatever. I could own their turds and piss as well if I needed to. I own anything that fell off of that fucking animal, right?
And it can be hyperbolic, right?
I might be known for such things.
Right. But you have to, if you are not cut from this cloth, I don't know what you're doing in this line of work. Like
Yes.
if you want to be a gym owner, if you want to,
conformists.
right. Like at the end of the day, what makes you become, whether you are an entrepreneur, which is you're working within the confines of a business, like you are a personal trainer or you're a gun for hire, and you can come in and you know how to come to a business owner and say, you know what, I'm not just another fucking employee here. I'm someone that's looking to build my own business within the confines of your business. And not only will it enhance what I do, but it will enhance your product as well. Gym owner wants to do fucking business with you, but you're not, that means you're not just a person that's going with the flow of the natural, just, I just want to collect my thing and have it just be a place where I can sit and do whatever, all the way to where if you're a gym owner, it means eventually you had to say, I don't fucking like the way you're doing things here. I don't like the way they do this. I want to do it my way. And then they now are on the entrepreneur track. And there has to be a little bit of fuck you here. That has to be in you, in your soul. And that is everything at the end of the day, Tyler. I think that's the leading principle, which is just be willing to say fuck you at first.
Yeah.
Say fuck you. I'm not just going to do it because you guys want me to. I'm not going to do it. For me, I've always explained it where it is. What's always bothered me, no matter what company I went to work for, no matter what I did, is even if I'm volunteering with a group, if someone says to me, well, if I go, why do we do it this way? And if someone says this is the way we've always done it, I'm like, oh, so fuck that.
Yep.
Because I need a better understanding of why we do what we do in order to understand, is how we're doing it the right way, or is there a better way to go about doing it? And that needs to be part of your ethos of why you do what you do.
Well, we had other subjects to get into, but we won't.
We'll save it for another episode.
I can rant pretty hard on these things for a long time. But I do think it's important to not just, it is blind conformity that is what is cult behavior. Blind conformity is what all of the worst parts of religion tends to be. So when we talk about science or government or their hand-in-hand relationship, blind conformity is what allows these structures to get to be so big and so powerful. Blind conformity is what allowed people to just stay in their houses for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that turned into 9 months, 10 months, a year. 15 months, 18 months if you're in Canada. Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Blind conformity is what made people turn in their neighbors because they were having birthday parties when we were living in Amsterdam. The cops called us because 6 of us were playing ping pong at 6 p.m. on a Saturday for a 16-year-old girl's birthday party because you weren't allowed to gather. Okay. That, fuck those people. You know what I mean? That's fucking crazy. You suck. And there's a line between being just an instinctual nonconformist or just choosing to think for yourself first. Like, I got to figure this out. I know that you're saying a lot of things, but I don't trust you or them or anybody. Like, I do have to understand this for myself. If you're trying to get me on board with anything, I need to understand it because it's me making the decision. So if I'm too uneducated, right, to understand what you're saying, fine. But then you can't lose your goddamn mind when I don't agree with you. Either dumb it down. If you're trying to get me on board, you need to get me on board, meaning learn to communicate to the people you're fucking communicating to. You want to force it? Well, now you're not trying to communicate with me. Now you're trying to fight with me. So there is a line between thinking for yourself and just being like obstinate. Right. And I've been accused of being the latter probably more often than most people. And that's probably true. But being a little bit rebellious will get you a real fucking long way in life. I promise, guys. And it's not going to turn you into one of those people that's like just a fucking soulless. Blind conformity is what NPCs do.
Yep.
That is true NPC behavior. And there's a funny little story. When I was a kid, it's maybe in like junior high, early high school, so maybe like from ages like 11 to 16, 17.
Yeah.
You get placed in the gifted program, which is usually code for like, we got to get these people who are smart but disruptive to class outside of this classroom. Because Tyler's not going to do any better in this class because he's in this class. He's disinterested in this class. Let's just get him out of this class because he'll disrupt it for everybody else, right? And so that was kind of what it is you get separated. But you would go to these. I got sent for like 2 weeks every summer to this camp for gifted kids. Okay. And there was like a bunch of, what's the word? Brilliant kids. And it's about a hard line, 50-50 on those kids that were going to be very successful and 50-50 that were, boy, really flirting with some wild criminal shit. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't be that intelligent. I would love to see the stats these days on how many people got felonies or fucking killed themselves or fell into drug addiction versus like program change the world, right? And it's probably 50-50 for real. That's the way it works.
Sure.
One of the days, these kids were like, they were good. It was interesting. They did this social experiment. This wasn't crafted. This wasn't a part of the program. This was just like hanging out at breakfast. And this thing kind of escalated for a couple of days where they make name tags. And they say, hey, do you want these name tags? This is very clever for junior high age kids. And they on the tag, they were, so they would write nonconformist for the name tag. And then they would go around trying to get other people to say, yeah, if you're nonconformist, and you do it. And by the end of it, it's like fucking 2/3 of these kids wearing tags bragging that they're nonconformists. So I think it's that instill in that brand, they weren't thinking about the fact that being a nonconformist means you're probably not just going to conform to the thing because everybody else is fucking doing it. It was this great little like psychological trap that these smart little kids put everybody in. Right. And I think that's, I don't know, that was just an interesting story. But so don't go out there and hate everything just because it's out there, and you just got to move slowly. But I think it's a good thing that nobody trusts these entities. And I think it's very important that anyone who's trying to politicize food or trying to politicize health or trying to leverage health or fear of poor health or be predatory in their pursuit of money in this department, I think is your enemy. So that doesn't mean ignore everything they say. It kind of means to the contrary. Keep an eye on them.
For sure.
Never turn your back. Because none of us saw COVID coming. I didn't. And I'll never fucking miss it again. I've seen all the stuff they try to test run at us again. How many times has monkeypox been tried to make a thing? Stop trying to make monkeypox a thing. Nobody's trying to believe this. But if they were running PCR tests like they could on COVID and just make a monkeypox test show that, oh, we're getting all these positive cases all of a sudden, even though people aren't dying, but now we're getting people dying with monkeypox and we can start to misappropriate that data. That's just not going to get very far with me and anyone who thinks like me anymore. So every time they start trying to make monkeypox fear a thing, you know what happens? It goes away because the algorithm immediately recognizes nobody gives a fuck. It does not work. There's no momentum.
And don't be afraid to like share your truth in your local communities. Hopefully, because my lived experience has always been whatever's being told to me that what I'm supposed to be thinking and what is supposed to be happening in real life isn't what I see in my local community.
Exactly.
I don't see race riots in my local community. I see people that are black, brown, and white and whatever, and they're just living their fucking lives, and everybody's just trying to do the best that they can. And so for me, it is you just be willing to kind of speak your truth a little bit in the lane in which you are. And if you do it where you allow yourself, maybe get outside your comfort zone, interact with people that are in your local communities that maybe don't appear to be aligned with everything that you are, what you think is your ethos, because there's not a bigger fuck you to any type of governing leading type organization that wants to dictate from top down. There's not a larger fuck you than going from ground up, because the people that get assassinated the quickest, and I'm not trying to get you all shot, but the reality is that the people that get assassinated the quickest are the ones that knock down every wall, every dividing point, which should be dividing us as a group of people.
And they
The ones
ride
that,
the biggest waves then.
because now you got everybody. Now you got, and then there's so many good examples, especially from time period where everybody was getting fucking assassinated, which was in the 60s and the 70s. Some pretty solid examples of Black Panthers linking up with AIDS activists, and now everybody's locked together. It's like, this doesn't make any sense, and that is the biggest threat, because now a lot more of us than there are of them.
Yeah. You can't have
And
the normies finding their way to the anti-war hippie movement. Can't have that, because we need the normies to vote and work and pay taxes and be stoked about us being in Vietnam, and that's what you need.
And so that's where that would be for me, is if it pushes you in a certain direction, challenges in it a little bit, it just look at it from the lens of, this is your business, this is what you want to do, and you do these things for the right reasons. Because this isn't everything that we're about, but definitely the idea of a revolution that we talk about when it comes to fitness, when it comes to taking care of your clients and your communities, there has to be this has to be a part of what you are, which is you stand up for doing the right thing for the people that you care about, kind of sometimes in contrast to what might be getting said, and just be like, then no, I'm not these things. I know you're trying to put me in that box.
And you have to be willing to challenge your own logic. Like I prefer to go out and steel man the other side often.
Right.
It was one of the things. It was Dave Smith talking about this the other day. It was like, and I'm not trying to be super political here, but like, if you ask the left what the conservatives believe, what the right believes, they're like way off, right? Pretty much way off. But if you ask the right what the left believes, you're pretty much dead on. They're pretty much right on. And there's a unwillingness on certain sides of things to just actually like give the other side of the aisle the benefit of the doubt and go, okay, what information are they getting? Why are they thinking this way? Why is this the case? And go through that one issue at a time, or fucking don't. But just whichever thing whichever thing you're in debate about or distress about or trying to figure out, like, challenge your own thoughts on something. Like, like I told you, I'm a heavy gun haver. Guns. My father has lots of guns. His father before, lots of. We're all gun owning folks. And I remember when the Sandy Hook thing happened, and I remember in my head going, as much of what I believe about was probably right about guns. I remember thinking, but what if there weren't any? If there just weren't any here, nobody's shooting a bunch of 6 and 7-year-olds today.
Mhm.
Like that. Okay, what is that? Like, can I sit here and go, that's one way that this wouldn't have happened, right? If those all were vaporized from existence, if I could use a genie, maybe that's how this worked. But if I got to send my neighbors who are cops to go over to their other neighbor's house to take the guns from a guy that doesn't want to give them up, that's how we're doing it. Now, all of a sudden, we've reached something else. And so implementation matters. Where those lines are drawn matters. And I think as long as you're willing to question your own stuff, you're not going to fall. The only people who are falling for this branding of anti-vaccination, anti-activism, and the demonizing of alternative, like just healthy foods and decentralized fucking agriculture, like the only people who are believing that is a fucking right-wing fucking movement is people who aren't thinking anything about anything. Right? just not thinking anything about their own situation. They're not thinking, oh, what, geez, why would John like to have chickens in his own garden? So like, what? Why would John want that? It's because John's,
He's
John.
a racist.
Because John's racist.
That's why.
Yeah. So anyway, this might be the most conspiratorial we've gotten in a long time. What I also want to say is this is funny because we talk about speaking out of both sides of our mouths here. This comes only a few episodes after our thing about these medications that are coming out for weight loss probably maybe aren't inherently bad, and maybe you need to figure out how to work with it because it's real, and because you know what, the reality of things is nuance. Okay. So think these things through. Find out where you wish the line was. Find out where your line is. I don't know. It's enough of us preaching to you, but thanks a lot for listening. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's one of my funnest episodes. I might put this one out a little soon. I think we maybe dropped the one we did because I think if we're a little ahead on episodes, this one may come out in close succession to another one. So I might want to get this one out soon while this article's making noise. Because otherwise, if it's not until I get back, we might miss the election. And it would be a real tragedy for us to not ride the wave of all this publicity. So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. If you want to work with John and I directly,
You're like, yeah, go fuck yourself.
You're like, listen, why don't you pay us some money and we'll tell you how to think. You can work with John and I directly with your gym or yourself as a personal trainer. There's plenty of things that we can do to start, but we have multiple different pathways forward, whether you're looking at transitioning from personal training to gym ownership, or you're looking at leveling up your personal training, or you want to take your fitness business from where it is to the next iteration, the next level. And you want to know the actionable steps, every step of the way that's going to get you there, and have us hold you accountable to the process. And it's not going to take 10 fucking years. We move quick, and we help you stay moving. We help you make the right decisions at the right time. That's what we're here to do. If you want in on any of that, you can shoot us a message at the Gym Owners Podcast on Instagram, or message us at thedudes@hackyourgym.com. Follow the show at the Gym Owners Podcast on Instagram. You can follow me at Tyler F. and Stone. That's Tyler EFF I and Stone. And John?
And you can follow me on Instagram at jbanksf.
Cut out at the end. It's jbanksfl.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
I got it.
All right. Bye.